Magandang Biyernes po sa inyo, aking mga kausapan. Please like, share, subscribe, and press the ting-ting bell button para ma-notify kayo sa aking susunod na vlog. Ito ang iyong abang lingkod, Usapang Batas with Attorney I. May batas bang nangangalaga sa personal na impormasyon ng bawat tao? Meron, mga kausapan. Nakapaloob sa Republic Act 10173 o Data Privacy Act of 2012 ang karapatan ng isang tao na maprotektahan ang kanyang pribadong data o datos.
Layo ng batas na maprotektahan ang pribadong datos ng mga customer tulad ng kanilang cellphone number at email, maging ang tax identification number or TIN nila sa pagkakataong mag-a-apply sila para sa mga serbisyo tulad ng bank account o cable service. Nakasaad din dito na hindi dapat makarating sa ibang tao ang kanilang sensitibong impormasyon. Maaari raw kasing makuha ang ilang pribadong datos maging ang pera ng isang customer sa pagkakataong may maklik na website o kaya ay makuha ang impormasyon sa posibleng data breach sa isang kumpanya. Kapag nag-click mo na ibigay mo ang sensitive at personal information, pwede nilang limasin ang mga deposito mo sa bangko, mag-apply ng loan sa pangalan mo. Pwede kang magkautang na di mo alam, mga kausapan. Nakapaloob din sa batas ang karapatan ng isang customer na magtanong kung para saan gagamitin ang kanyang pribadong datos na kung tawagin ay waiver of rights. Sa mga paligsahan naman tulad ng raffle contest na kumukuha ng telephone number at maging mga email ng mga contestant, pansamantala lamang nilang pwedeng itago ang impormasyon ng kanilang mga aplikante. Sa batas rin mananagot ang mga mapapatunayang gumagawa ng data breach o hindi otorisadong pagkuha ng impormasyon ng isang tao.
Maaring idulog ang mga lumalabag dito sa National Privacy Commission na ahensya na ngasiwa ukol sa pagprotekta ng sensitibong datos. Maaaring makulong at pagmultahin mula 500,000 pesos hanggang 4 million ang mga kumpanya o taong lalabag dito. Depende sa pananagutan. Yan ay bird's eye view pa lamang ng batas ng Data Privacy Act o RA 10173, mga kausapan. Ating himay-himayin at ang ating maintindihan ang sinasabi nito. Ayon sa pag-aaral, ang mga Filipinos ay nasa online ng 10 oras at 2 minuto sa bawat araw. Yan daw ang pinakamataas sa buong mundo. Ang tanong, mga kausapan, may ginagawa ba ang Pilipinas para sa privacy at data protection? Noong 2012, ang Pilipinas ay nagpasa ng batas, Republic Act number 10173 or the Data Privacy Act of 2012 to protect the fundamental human rights to privacy of communication while ensuring free flow of information to promote innovation and growth. The state's inherent obligation to ensure that personal information and communication system in government and in the private sector are secured and protected. The Data Privacy Act was passed in accordance with the Philippine agreements under Asian Vision 2020 and at the urging of the growing business process outsourcing industry. The law was modeled after the Data Protection Directive with many of its terminologies and provisions similar to privacy laws in other jurisdictions. Ang Data Privacy Act at ang Implementing Rules and Regulations, IRR, mag-a-apply sa lahat ng kilos at gawa o practices na ginagawa sa loob at labas ng Pilipinas. Kung ang isang tao o isang institution na gumagawa ng pagproseso ng personal data is located in the Philippines. Ang gawa o practice ay tungkol sa personal data ng isang Filipino citizen o residente sa Pilipinas. Ang pagproseso ng personal data at ginagawa sa Pilipinas o the act, practice, or processing of personal data is done by an entity with the links to the Philippines subject to international law and committee. Ano ang personal data attorney ay? Ang sagot ay lahat ng klase ng personal information at personal data. Kanino pa siya nasabi ang processing attorney ay? Ano kaya yun? Ang processing ay operasyon o gawa ukol sa personal data ng isang tao. Ang operasyon na ito ay kasali ang number 1, collection ng personal data, recording, organization, storage, updating or modification, retrieval, consultation, use, consolidation, blocking, erasure, or destruction of data. May ahensya ba ng gobyerno na namamahala at nag-implement ng Data Privacy Act, mga kausapan? Meron, mga kausapan, ang National Privacy Commission or NPC ang in charge at nagpapatakbo at nag-implement ng DPA. It is also tasked to monitor and ensure compliance of the Philippines with international standards for personal data protection. Ano ang kanilang major functions? Ito ang mga sumusunod. Rulemaking. Pangalawa, advisory. The NPC is the advisory body on matters related to personal data protection. 3. Public education. The NPC shall launch initiatives to educate the public about data privacy, data protection, and fair information rights and responsibilities. Meron pa, compliance and monitoring. NPC, the body has compliance and monitoring functions to ensure personal information controllers comply with the law. It is also tasked to manage the registration of personal data processing system. Dalawa pa, complaints and investigation. At ang panghuli is enforcement, pagpatupad ng batas, mga kausapan. Ano naman ang personal information controller? Ang sagot ay, siya ay maaaring isang tao o institution o kahit sino na nagkukontrol sa pagproseso ng personal data or datos or instruct another to process personal data on its behalf. Ikaw ang personal data controller, ano ang iyong obligasyon at gagawin, mga kausapan? If you are a personal information controller, you are required to comply with the following in accordance with the law. Una, registration of data, processing systems or DPS. An individual or institution employing fewer than 250 employees need not register unless its data processing operations 1. Involves sensitive personal information of at least 1,000 individuals likely to pose a risk to the rights of and freedoms of data subjects, or the processing is not occasional. Second, notification of automated processing operations, where the processing becomes the sole basis of making decisions about a data subject, and when the decisions would significantly affect the data subject. A data subject is an individual whose personal, sensitive, personal, or privileged information is processed. Take note, no decision with legal effects concerning a data subject should be made solely on the basis of automated processing without the consent of the data subject. The consent may be in written, electronic, or recorded form. It may be given by a lawful representative or agent. Next is the appointment of a data protection officer in charge of ensuring the compliance with the DPA. Sunod din ay creation of a data breach response team that will immediately address security incidents or personal data breach. Next is adoption of data protection policies that provide for data security measures and security incident management. Next, annual report of the summary of documented security incidents and personal data breaches. And lastly, compliance with other requirements as may be provided by the NPC. Ano ang gagawin pag may data breach, mga kausapan? The law requires a data breach notification within 72 hours upon knowledge of the breach or reasonable belief that it has occurred to the NPC and the data subject. The notification is generally required when the breach involves sensitive personal information or any other information that may be used to enable identity fraud. This information has been acquired by an authorized person, and the acquisition is likely to give rise to a real risk of serious harm to the affected data subject. The NPC may investigate the breach depending on its nature or if there is a delay or failure to notify. Inquiries may include on-site examination of systems and procedures. Anong datos ang maaaring kunin sa iyo, mga kausapan? Una, buong pangalan. Pangalawa, iyong edad. Tatlo, kasarian. Apat, home address. Number 5, email address. Number 6, employment information and or representation. Number 7, litrato. Number 8, contact numbers. Number 9, other personal data sheet or PDS contents. Kasama doon ang ID numbers, dates indicated in the form, family background, education, work-related information, and the like. Pang-10, mga kausapan, ay ang iyong signature. Last, number 11 is images like via CCTV and other similar devices and processes which may be served when visiting offices and or using other facilities. Yung mga nakuhang impormasyon na yon ay mga personal information or data. Sa Tagalog ay mga personal na datos. Kasama rin doon ang iyong mga komento o suhestyon na makukuha sa pamamagitan ng survey o iba pang paraan. Ito, importante ito. Dapat nating malaman lahat kung ano ang ating mga karapatan bilang may-ari ng personal data o datos sa Data Privacy Act. Ano mga yun, mga kausapan? Based on the provisions provided for under Rule 8, Section 34 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations IRR of RA 10173, otherwise known as the Data Privacy Act DPA of 2012, we are committed to uphold the following rights of an individual. Ang individual, ang tawag doon ay data subject. Karapatan mo rin na ma-access ang iyong personal information o datos. Right to access. In relation to your right to be informed, you also have the right to gain reasonable access to your personal data as A. Contents of your personal data that were processed. B. Manner by which such data were processed. C. Date when your data was last processed and modified, among others. Right to object. You have a right to object to the processing of your personal data. Likewise, you have the right to be notified and given an opportunity to withhold consent to the processing in case of changes to the information given to you regarding the processing of your information. Right to erasure or blocking. You have the right to suspend, withdraw, or order the blocking, removal, or destruction of your personal data. Right to damages. You may claim compensation if you suffer damages due to inaccurate, incomplete, outdated, false, unlawfully obtained, or unauthorized use of your personal data. Right to file a complaint. You may file a complaint if you are the subject of a privacy violation of personal data. Breach, or who are personally affected by a violation of the DPA. Meron ka rin karapatan to rectify or right to rectification. You have the right to dispute any inaccuracy or error in your personal data and request to correct it unless such request is unreasonable. Right to data portability. This means that you have a right to obtain a copy of your personal data either in an electronic or structured format to give you more control and manage your data. The Philippines has a relatively young data privacy regime. The Data Privacy Act as well as RA number 10175 or the Cybercrime Prevention Act was only enacted in 2012, although some countries passed data protection laws as early as the 70s. The Philippines regulatory body, the NPC, was formally organized in 2016, which issued IRRs and circulars in the same year. Nevertheless, the country is on its way to developing a stable framework of privacy protection as technological innovations liberalize information sharing. Salamat sa inyong panonood. Till next Friday, ito ang iyong abang lingkod, Usapang Batas with Attorney I.